This is an X-Wing mech, and this is a TIE Fighter mech. And in this video, I'm going to be building 9 custom mechs based off of different characters and vehicles from the Star Wars universe. I'm also going to be building a full-scale battle arena for all the mech teams to face off against each other, so let's get started with the first custom mech. This year, LEGO released the Stormtrooper mech, and I think this design is the perfect candidate to be transformed into a clone trooper mech. For the character mechs, I'm going to try and build something in the same style as the official designs from LEGO. They aren't too complicated, and they're basically just scaled up, stylized versions of the characters that they represent. The first character mech I want to build is Captain Rex. He has a white and blue color scheme, and he is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. I was able to figure out what I wanted to do pretty quickly, and thankfully I had lots of blue parts in my collection from all the 501st battle packs I bought earlier this year. I started by taking all the Stormtrooper parts off of the mech so it was stripped down to the frame. I added details in blue and white and stuck a Republic logo tile on the front of the mech. After that, I brick built an oversized DC-17 blaster, and the first mech was complete. This mech turned out just as I expected it would, and even with a comically large blaster, I think it looks pretty good. Now that I have a system down for clones, it's time to move on to the next one. Since I built Captain Rex first, of course I also needed Commander Cody to go alongside him. Because Cody is orange, I picked up this rocket mech to use for parts. I was planning on using more parts from this build, but I ended up just stealing its arms and legs and combining them with parts from another Stormtrooper mech. Commander Cody uses a DC-15 blaster, so I needed to design a new blaster for him. It's much longer than the DC-17, so I was a little worried about stability, but I got a solid design figured out. This matches the styling of the Captain Rex mech quite nicely, and I'm happy with how the blaster turned out. I like the bright orange color combination, and I'm glad I had more Republic logo tiles laying around so I could use one here too. The last clone trooper mech I want to build is Commander Wolffe. This has to be one of my favorite minifigure designs that LEGO has ever made. I used another Stormtrooper mech as the base of this design, and I pulled out all of my sand blue parts so I could color match with the minifigure. Thankfully, Commander Wolffe uses the same blaster style as Captain Rex, so I went ahead and built another one using the same design as before. I really like this mech, mostly because I'm a big fan of sand blue, and I'm really happy with the simplicity of this design. It's not too complex, but it gets the job done. Let's move on to making some other mechs. Next up, I want to create a mech for Ahsoka. I used a Darth Vader mech for the gray arms and legs with a dark blue chest plate from a Thanos mech to get the base of this build started. I used a lot of dark blue accent pieces to match Ahsoka's general color scheme and used my last Republic logo tile on the chest plate of the mechs. I also stole some blue lightsabers from my General Grievous buildable character so the mech could have some weapons. This build was pretty straightforward, and I think it gets the job done. I wish there were other colors of the lightsaber piece in production so these wouldn't be so oversized, but I'm sure we'll get to see those eventually if they make more mechs again next year. This completes the Republic team for the battle arena. Let's move on to building some Separatists. The first mech to build for the Separatists is Count Dooku. My friend Yako was visiting and he wanted to build the Dooku mech, so I let him give it a shot. After an evening of work, he managed to come up with a pretty cool design. This mech turned out great, and even though it's a little fragile, the details are a lot of fun, and I like the look of the cape that he created with the long panel pieces. The custom lightsaber hilt is also a nice touch. Next up, even though he isn't exactly a Separatist, I think Darth Maul fits in pretty well with this category in general, and I've been wanting to build a mech for him, so let's get started. I used another Darth Vader mech for this design because the gray and black color scheme with hints of red works perfectly for a Darth Maul mech. I added a bunch of spikes onto his arms and legs, and I pulled another lightsaber piece from a different Vader mech to give him a double-sided lightsaber. Maul is one of my favorite characters from Star Wars, and he's the perfect enemy for Ahsoka, so I'm glad that I got to make this mech. Let's move on to our last Separatist build. As the apprentice of Count Dooku, Ventress is a great addition to the lineup, and I'm excited to add her to the team. I used another Vader and Thanos combo for the gray body parts and blue torso. I also used a couple of angled pieces for detailing and some hoops for shoulder protection. I feel like this mech embodies the character of Ventress really well, and I think it might be one of the cleanest designs that I've come up with so far. The Separatist mech team lineup is complete, so we've got our first matchup ready to go. We can't forget about the Rebels and the Empire though, so let's move on to building the next matchup. For the Rebels, I wanted to build a vehicle mech, and I wanted to go big. I picked up this Ninjago mech so I could use it as a starting point for modification, and I planned to combine it with parts from this X-Wing. I started by color swapping the legs and pulling some of the side panels from the X-Wing so I could use them for their sticker details. I moved on to modifying the wings to be smaller so I could use them as shoulder pads for the mech, and as I kept building, my desk kept getting messier and messier. I also picked up these printed dish pieces, but I only ended up using one of them for detail on the back of the mech. I moved on to building the cockpit, added the other shoulder pad on, built some weapons out of X-Wing guns, and this is how it turned out. I am super happy with the outcome here. I think it's easy to tell that this is based on an X-Wing, and I love the proportions. I'm definitely keeping this thing built for a while. Of course, since this is done now, it needs an enemy to fight against, so let's build a vehicle mech for the Empire. I started this build out by buying the $50 Hulkbuster mech so I could use it as my base model. I am no expert when it comes to building mech frames, so this was definitely helpful to have. I generally followed along with the instructions as I went, swapping out all the dark red parts for gray and black where it made sense. Because the dish piece for the TIE Fighter is so large, I needed to completely reconfigure the top section of the mech to get all the angles right so there weren't any major gaps. I worked on extending the legs of the mech to give it a little bit more height, built a blaster cannon for its arm, and downsized the wing of a TIE Fighter playset for the mech to use as a shield. Looking at the final build, I feel like it's still somewhat obvious that this used to be a Hulkbuster, but I'm pretty happy with it all things considered, and I love the TIE Fighter wing shield. Now that all the mechs are complete, it's time to build an arena for the battles to take place. I started by laying down 6 48 by 48 base plates and worked on building the main wall at the back of the arena that would be there to protect the crowd from the mechs fighting in the pit area. Next, I moved on to building some tiered viewing areas for the crowd to stand in and a wall behind that section with some doorways for minifigures to come and go. I wanted to build some floating platforms, kind of like a Super Smash Bros. Stage, so I got 2 platforms put together. I also wanted to include an obstacle in the middle of the arena, so I built a laser wall, and then after that I added some red and blue tiled sections to show the red and blue team halves of the arena. Next, I built some ventilation details on the floor and spaced them out evenly around the rest of the arena. I worked on tiling off the entire battle area in gray to give everything a nice smooth look, and then I turned my attention to the back of the build. I added doors to cover the entryways in the back and worked on building up a whole second level behind the first for a VIP viewing area. I increased the height of everything by quite a bit to create a nice backdrop for the battle. After adding in some decorative banners and a huge variety of minifigures to fill up the massive crowd section, I am finally done with this build. Let's take a look at the final mech battle arena. Let me know in the comment section down below which mech team you think would have the best chance of winning a fight. You can check out my other Star Wars mech video by clicking right here, or if you're in the mood for something different, you can check out this video over here. But make sure you don't forget to hit the subscribe button before heading over. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good one.